This is the Speak USA podcast. We are here to learn about our democracy and things that you can do to help save it and make it stronger. And I want to welcome Sakib Shaikh to the Speak USA podcast. Sakib, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. We're going to have a great conversation. We have a lot of topics in common, I think, is the way I would put it. In common because we care about it, and one or two in common because we've both done it.
Right.
And for that reason more, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think we ought to start by letting you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. Take it away.
So my name is Sakib Shaikh. I am 40 years old. I live in the medical center, lived in San Antonio for around 25 years. And the vast majority of that has been in the District 8 area, going from either from the Bernie area down to the medical center. My wife is a physics teacher at the College of Health Professionals.
Goodness. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
Your wife teaches physics. That's cool. We're going to have to add that a little bit somehow. Yeah. All right.
And my parents immigrated from Pakistan over 40 years ago. So I was born in Houston. And then we moved to San Antonio when I was like 15.
All right. So you're second generation. Second generation. So your parents immigrated.
My parents immigrated. Yeah.
So
I always forget what constitutes second generation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe you're first generation born here, right?
Yeah. First generation born here.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Sorry to those of you out there who get how I should have said that. Sorry, I didn't do that right. Now, you also are a former candidate. You ran for District 8 Council.
Yeah. Came within 77 votes of the runoff.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was...
Feeling your pain, even as you say that, I could...
The thing is, like, I didn't feel pain. I mean, we were watching the results. At one point, we got... Before all the precincts were counted, we were 34 votes behind. And we thought that this last precinct is going to put us over the top, but it ended up putting us a little more behind. But I had to train myself throughout the campaign to think about the outcome differently and kind of control my thoughts and teach myself that I have to be detached from the outcome. That whatever happens, the outcome is a completely separate thing that's not up to me. But what happens leading up to the day of the election, that's up to me. The excellence of the campaign, its execution, that is in my control. And if I failed at that, then that's on me.
Yeah. And indeed, in my day job, I write a lot of grants. And I have what I've come to understand is a mental health strategy. I never thought about it like that before until mental health became such a big deal. But I write a grant and I forget about it. I hit the send button.
Yeah.
Off it goes. I've done my job, and it really is out of my control at that point. I think that's a very similar
and I mean,
way of
there's
thinking about it.
6 candidates that the voters have to choose from, and I think I'm the best, but they also think they're the best.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I would hope so. Right, if they're running, I would hope that's the case. So, anyway, we're going to talk some as we move forward about a little bit more about what it was like to be a candidate and how you did that. But I want you to tell me a little more about yourself before we get there, and your family as well. Your family has an interesting story. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah. So my parents come from a very South Asian working class background. And a lot of South Asians that you'll meet, they're oftentimes...
He defines South Asia.
Yeah, so South India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, that's South Asia.
All right.
So the mass wave of immigrants that came from South Asia happened in like 1984. 83, 84, right? So you won't meet a South Asian who's older than me that was born in America.
Was there a reason for that?
I think that's just when the government opened up immigration to South Asia.
To allow
it, yeah. Otherwise, before that, it was just much harder. You really had to come at the behest of like a university.
Yeah.
As a student.
Yeah, to have that reason. And, listening to you make that list of countries is meaningful to me. We're going to talk more about the international side in a little bit, but I have a program that I worked on in India called South Asia Connect.
Nice.
This is why I thought we should define South Asia, because I know when I started, I didn't understand what South Asia Connect meant exactly. But the countries we work with were Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and India. Those are the 5 countries that were involved. And something I never thought I'd get to do in my life. I spent 36 hours in Kathmandu.
Nice.
As part of that program. Yeah. And have a great story about missing my flight home, but that could be for another day as well. So your family integrate. When did your family come here?
So my parents, so my dad was living in Dubai before the boom of what Dubai is now. That's when it was just like a startup city. So he was working in a mechanic shop there and working in sales. Then he got married to my mom and they moved to Houston. And for about 20 years, he worked at a convenience store. That was the era where the working class, there was still affordability in working class jobs. So he was able to buy a home, he was able to buy a car, which is very difficult to do now in those same jobs. He built our life, with his bare hands, and it took 20 years for him to be able to save the money to be able to open his own convenience store. That's why you hear a lot about South Asians getting in the convenience store business, right? It's a very straightforward business model, like buy goods at wholesale price and sell them at retail price. So you'll hear very popular success stories of immigrants who are not college educated. My parents are not college educated, but they own multiple stores, and then their children become, highly educated. So that's my family's background. My mom shifted between a stay-at-home mom. She was at one point a business owner herself. She owned a salon. She was a cosmetologist for a good 20 years, and now she's a full-time grandma.
That's so common. I just suspect a lot of people can relate to that. I walk into convenience stores all the time, and I see people from a similar background who own that store, and I wonder about that story. But I think of something that we see all the time as well. Those parents spent time building that business so that you could then become a realtor and a business owner and a candidate for District 8.
I mean,
how amazing is that?
It's the classic cliche immigrant success story that you hear about conceptually. People live this every day. Every convenience store you go to, every small mom and pop bakery that's owned by immigrants, they went through the exact same thing. I mean, very few immigrants that moved here came with money. They just came with drive, ambition, honesty, and patience.
And I have a thought that is, when we think of immigrants today, we have a particular, source of those immigrants, what countries they're coming from. About 150 years ago, it was maybe it was Ireland,
right?
That immigrants were coming from, right? And some of the attitudes that were held 150 years ago are sadly not terribly different than the attitudes that we see today among some people, right? I want to be careful about characterizing everybody, but I think part of what we're trying to accomplish on this podcast and the group that's sponsoring this podcast is to understand the energy that immigrants add and that drive that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's a form of like grassroots revitalization. That's the phrase I would hope to popularize. That's what immigrants do. And I'm saying this, I'm not an immigrant, right? Like I was born here, all the privileges that come with it. Yeah. I didn't face much discrimination growing up. I lived in a very diverse enclave of Houston. But that's what immigrants bring.
Well, but you probably saw some of that with your parents, though, I would imagine. You had a little bit of exposure, perhaps?
Exposure to
maybe them not being treated the same as their neighbors.
I'll tell you this. Growing up, I didn't know how to process things that I saw. But 9/11, I was 15 or 16 when 9/11 happened, right? And so processing that in school while also being somewhat aware of the politics of the region, it was a difficult time. Like I think about my 15-year-old self, and I feel bad for that kid, being asked questions about your identity, your faith, and like there's so much I didn't know about myself and my upbringing and my roots that I was forced to talk about. And it was just out of innocent curiosity of some, but it was kind of like in your face, like you need to answer for your people type of questions.
Right. Right. When you need to answer for your people, yet you never lived there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when I go to Pakistan, I'm a tourist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Do you speak the language?
I can speak Urdu. Yeah, I can speak Urdu. My mother tongue is Sindhi. Like that's the ethnic group that I am.
Okay.
I can understand Sindhi, but I definitely can't speak it. But Urdu, I mean, growing up, it would take me a little bit to lose the accent, to lose the American accent when I'm in Pakistan. Now I think it's just fixed. Like I sound like a white guy trying to speak Urdu.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't know what that's like. I'm afraid I'll never know what that is like. But that's part of what I think all of us as Americans need to understand. We need to be a little bit little tolerant and understand we're just never going to have that experience. Never going to understand it the way somebody who grew up in that setting understands it.
And the campaign like taught me to be patient with people because there's really a limit. Everybody has a limit to how much they can understand without having to experience it themselves. It's all conceptual, right? I mean,
right.
We're hoping that there's enough compassion in the person to where even if they don't understand it, they'll just give me that grace. But everyone has a different limit.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get into that grace a little bit when we talk about one of your wonderful videos, two of your wonderful videos that we talked about. But let's talk about the international travel. What work were you doing? Well, actually, you were part of a program.
Yeah,
it's very cool. I want to hear all about this now.
So I was very fortunate. I mean, thinking back, like the blessing to be able to enjoy this journey and this opportunity. I wanted for my kids. Okay, so what is it exactly? When I was an undergrad at UTSA, I badly wanted to study abroad in Turkey. Like that, Turkey for some reason, because the Ottomans, they were like this mighty Muslim empire. So I just had this fascination with Turkey all the time. But UTSA didn't have a program just in Turkey. So I kept looking around and I discovered this program called Semester at Sea that included Turkey.
Okay.
But it included 9 other countries as well. So it was a program where I lived at sea on a ship with about 400 other students for a semester.
And how long did the program last?
It was 100 days.
100 days.
So
3
we
months.
started
3 months at sea.
So like almost 3.5.
What was the ship like, by the way? Was it like a fancy cruise ship or
It
maybe
was
not?
a luxury cruise liner converted into a university.
Oh my gosh.
So we had a library, we had like computer labs, classrooms, and then our rooms.
That's amazing. So where did you go?
So we started off in Japan. Okay, so we all met in Mexico, Ensenada, Mexico. So the west side of Mexico on the Pacific. Then we went to Japan, then China, then Vietnam, then Burma, then India, then Egypt, then Turkey, then Croatia, then Spain.
Oh my gosh.
So all the way around, like a full circle around the globe. So literally around the world in 100 days.
Around the world. You know, I did a lot of international travel. I had one trip where I got to spend some time in Cyprus, which is really interesting because there's actually a UN buffer zone in Cyprus between the Greek south and the Turkish north, I think, that's something I had never experienced, being in a zone with the guy with the blue, I think that's right, the blue uniforms on. And then I went to Cyprus, and then I flew to Taiwan, and I flew home, and I actually went all the way around the world.
I mean, the world
I've never
has
done that
much
before.
to offer.
Yeah.
The world has so much to offer. Yeah, and I, given like the prevailing sentiment in the world right now with the right wing and how they treat immigrants and how they look at the rest of the world, it's really sad because I see people who they just need to travel, and then they'll have a respect for the people. Like I hear so much talk about immigrants from South America right now, or Mexico. It used to be immigrants, like illegal immigrants coming from Mexico. I want to challenge people who criticize like the culture of Mexico is for one day go to Mexico City. Just one time in your life, go to Mexico City. Just
By the way,
walk a street.
I've done exactly that. I caught a flight in the morning and I flew home that night. All my international travel, I'd never been to Mexico except like 5 miles over the border.
Right.
And I had a chance come up. I was like, man, I really need to fix this. So,
I mean, even if you go to Monterrey, I mean, these are world-class cities that are just a few hours from us. It's a 2-hour flight to Mexico City. And I mean, my wife and my kids, we've been there in the past 2 years, like 5 times. But you get this respect for the people, for their heritage, their culture, and what their presence can contribute.
Yeah, I used to, well, in fact, I still tell this today. I didn't travel much at all until I was about 40 years old. And my joke is my international travel before that was Canada and Hawaii.
Yeah.
and yes, I know everyone. That's not, the second one's not international.
Yeah.
The first one barely is, right? It is strictly international. It's a different sovereign country, but very, very much the same. Traveling really changed my perspective on things. I went to Portugal a lot, learned a lot about Portugal. I went to India a lot as well, and really learned about, a lot and understood. I believed in the idea that we need friends all over the world. As a country, right? As a country, we need these friends. The things that George H.W. Bush did and the way that he built relationships, so powerful. What's happened to that? How is it that party now has flipped? It's hard for me to understand, and I gained a much deeper appreciation of it, having done all of that travel and been able to work with people. You made Monterey Tech is an incredibly well respected, high tech university. Now, how many people know that?
Yeah,
not a lot, right?
It's beautiful. I mean, I was jokingly thinking like when America took these states from Mexico, they took the wrong one. They needed to go all the way. Mexico, the proper.
Don't say that too loud. Yeah, indeed. Well, but I'm going to add very quickly though. I like my city.
Yeah,
I like where I live a lot. But in any case, those relations are so important, and what a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to be part of that. How old were you when you did that?
20.
20.
20, yeah.
See, I'd have been better off, I think, if I'd have done it at a younger age, been able to do that. So
I want my kids. I have 3 girls. I want them to do this so badly, but I'm still paying for my student loans from that program.
Yeah, well, which means you understand what so many people in the world are going through, right? Yeah, or in our country.
The crazy
how many people in our country, how they feel about education and so forth.
Other countries aren't going through this like financial crunch when it comes to education. Like university, there are ways for people to go, especially in like Western Europe, like debt what am I trying to say? Like college isn't a thing that's supposed to cripple you. It's a thing that you're supposed to be encouraged to go through. And the state finds ways to make it easier for you to go.
Right.
Over here, I don't know why we're doing the opposite.
Yeah, we've made it hard. And, and so you go back, this is one of my big speeches. I try to avoid making it every time we're on the air, but I guess here I go again. Back in 1940s, a fellow named Vannevar Bush, unrelated, was instrumental in recognizing for our country, both during wartime and during peacetime, the importance of basic scientific research, the importance of going to school, the importance of having professors who are trying to advance the state of the art. And he did that work. One of the things he's essentially recognized for is the founder of the National Science Foundation. Okay. How impactful has NSF been to our country? What are we doing right now? What are we doing? You know, it just kind of, it's really mind blowing. And, you know, and indeed, we need to make it easier for students to go to school. We want them to be smart. We want them to know what's going on in the world, right? So speaking of, you know, how things are going on in our country, I want to change the topic to a couple of videos that you made that I just think are spectacular. They talk about a mindset. To me, you know, what's been lost in the last 10 years, shall I say, is the right mindset for America. For us to understand who we are, what makes us strong, what will sustain us over the long term. You talk about in these videos. Let me just hand it to you and let you talk us through that.
So if you study like the history of colonization, obviously like I'm South Asian, there's a deep history of British colonialism in India and Pakistan. And in the West, we don't look at like the effects of colonization. We just look at the end result, what the country looks like today, and just blame it on the people that live there today, not understanding the events that led up to their current condition. And the reason why we don't do that, I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm pessimistic about human nature. But what's becoming clear to me is that we value some lives and other lives we just don't value. So when I look at the current crisis in Gaza, the attitude of the press, it's changing, but I'm glad it's changing, but it's happening in the weirdest way. So let's set the full scene, right?
Sure.
October 7th happened. It was terrible. Okay. But what's happened since October 7th is arguably way worse than October 7th. But we still, whenever the discussion comes out in public, we still have to equate the two when they're not equal. Like one is way worse than the other. And the sad part is what gets left out of the conversation is the dehumanization of the apartheid and occupation in the West Bank and Gaza that led to something like October 7th happening.
Right.
That led to that anger, that frustration, that desire to lash out or take revenge. But if the roles were reversed, I mean, I look at the coverage of Ukraine. The coverage of Ukraine, I think, is done right. So the Ukrainian people are suffering
in the press.
In the press, it's
right.
done right.
Yeah.
You know, they are the victims. They did not ask for Russia to invade them. And I don't even know why our president is handling it the way he is, talking about like Russia or Ukraine should just give up.
You know, this week I'm wearing an immigrant T-shirt. Last week I was wearing a Ukrainian T-shirt. Yeah. You know, that talks to me, Ukraine, and maybe I'm wrong about this listening to you talk, but at least until this instant, to me, Ukraine is the front lines of defending freedom and democracy around the world right now.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the front lines.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not completely wrong. That I'm sure.
No, it's true. Yeah. I would say Gaza is probably a bigger front because it's our ally that's doing the killing. And this is like a real test for America to determine, are we as good as we think we are? And I feel bad saying this, but we're failing like big time. It's really, I mean, I feel like my reality is not the same as everyone else's.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true across numerous topics. Right. I mean, it's like, are we really looking at the same facts here? Right. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, please.
So it's leading me to a place where I'm just seeing the eyes of the people that are looking at this, and when they're not able to muster up basic humanity for one group of people, but have overwhelming humanity for the other. It just makes me question their sense of morality. And it's way more people that are like that than there should be. And so there is a mindset in a lot of people that certain people, their subjugation, it's okay because they're not real people. So during British colonial times, it was my people that were not considered real people. Right. So whatever famines happened at that time, 3 famines in Bangladesh alone in 100 years, whether it's taking resources out of India and exporting them all to England and leaving crumbs behind, where at one point India was 25% of the world's industrial output. It's, by the end of British colonialism, it became 3% of the world's industrial output. We just look at certain people and just think their suffering is okay because they're just less people. They're not that important. They're not that smart. They bring a lot of it on themselves. Or it's just, I really don't know how to put my finger on it. Like, what is it about certain people that we look at them and just don't see them as equals?
Indeed.
I'd be interested in your thoughts. What do you think about that?
I see that constantly. I see that happening across all sorts of people groups. And this is where I want to bring this back to those videos that you made, because I think what I see is people tuned in to the needs and the suffering of groups that are more like them, and just not as tuned in to the needs and the suffering and the problems of people who are not like them. And this is where those videos you made are so interesting, because there is a continuum there. There are people who are very intentionally saying things to divide us. Yeah. They know it's going to divide us. They're doing it because it is in their political interest to divide us. Then there are other people who just are not tuned in, and they hear these other folks who are trying to divide them very intentionally. Maybe they shouldn't be tuned into those channels the way they are, but the fact is they are, and it's internalized in them, and it scares them.
So I experienced like the byproduct of this. It's almost propaganda, right? This intentional effort to mislead people.
I would argue it is propaganda.
It is propaganda, right?
Yeah.
So I experienced the byproduct of this at the door when I was campaigning. So I would get questions like, this is the craziest thing. One of my neighbors, I was having a meet and greet in my neighborhood, and one of my neighbors who you don't know all your neighbors, right? But one neighbor came up to me, and I was talking about like drainage issues and how there's a certain type of concrete that's more absorbent and all that. And it went on for a few minutes, and at the end of it, this neighbor asked me, she was like, yeah, that's good. So you're not going to bring Sharia law to San Antonio, are you?
Oh,
and I was like, so she may have seen videos of, really ignorant discussions about Sharia law, about the Muslim world, about practices in like the interior side of certain countries, poorer countries, and just thought that this is the breadth of it. And she just felt scared herself. She probably didn't even see it as like a battle of good and evil, the East versus West. That's probably a bigger concept for her to grapple with. It was more so like, if this guy gets elected, is he going to do something to hurt me? Or is he going to do something that my day-to-day life is going to be different?
Right.
And that's what all these things boil down to for people. So when they hear lofty discussions on social media about immigration, about cultural dilution, all these things. Their real concern is, what is my world going to look like when I look outside the door tomorrow?
Yeah. How's that going to affect?
Yeah.
And a belief, I don't agree with this belief, but a belief that it was better 20 years ago, 40 years ago than it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the mindset that people get into. I don't know how they look around the world and justify that on the whole. Maybe an individual's life, right, for reasons particular to that individual have been better off.
I really don't know what they're thinking when my life is much better today, right, than it was in the past. I think what they're thinking of is just simply affordability. Life was more affordable for sure. There were a lot less things to buy 20, 40 years ago. And so you just don't have this stress or this competition of wealth or having to accumulate things.
Yeah.
So it was much simpler back then for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking culturally, right? It was culturally simpler, right?
It was culturally simpler
because
for
there
sure.
was less diversity.
Yeah.
Right. Across numerous areas of society, right?
Yeah.
It was just less diverse and, less challenging in that sense.
Less
for
challenging.
people
There's
who
less
don't
to
value
think about.
that intrinsically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm lucky. I value diversity a lot. I live on the Silk Road district. That's that corridor of the Middle Eastern, South Asian businesses on I-10 and Wurzbach. That's where I live. Every day I go outside and I see diverse pedestrians. I visit Baklava Bakery and you just see the colors of humanity.
Yeah, indeed. And this is where I think back, well, what was it like 100 years ago? Well, I'm sure I'm getting the history and the timing right, but oh my gosh, the Irish are coming, right?
Right.
What are we going to do, right? And then today we don't give it a second thought. Projecting out 30, 50, 100 years, we probably won't give this a second thought. And 30, 50, 100 years, we'll be on to the next one.
I wonder, because with the Irish, with the Italians, there are similarities. In the end, they're Catholic, they're Christian, so you're able to make a connection. With Muslims and people from Africa, I do wonder what it would take for society to kind of accept them as a whole and accept the sum of their parts.
Yeah,
because
and really adopt the idea that we have religious freedom.
Yeah, and that
US,
religion,
right?
This religion is different, but it's an American religion now. Period. Full stop.
Yeah, exactly. And I grew up in a tradition that has become very conservative, even though the place that I went to was not especially conservative. I look at that today and say, I don't recognize that.
Yeah.
What happened? So I guess I've come to value diversity and the power of having a lot of different people thinking a lot of different things, ethically, with high ethical and moral standards, but really coming from different perspectives and the power that brings to us. I'd really like you. I love the term you use, and I guess we probably need to define it, but you called it the colonizer mindset.
The colonizer mindset.
Yeah, you don't mean like, colonizing land so much as our minds.
Yeah. I mean, it's rooted in the idea that some people are below human and then some people are regular humans. That's the thing that society needs to get past. Because, it entails so much suffering to dehumanize someone. I mean, okay, I look at this recent conflict with Iran, which was basically two countries bombing one and then one country bombing another back. But that country, it was 40 years of dehumanization of Iranians, Iranian culture, their system of government, their religion. 40 years of dehumanization to get the public behind it. I would argue it actually didn't work because the public wasn't behind it. But seeing like pundits like Van Jones Okay, Van Jones is someone on CNN who I respected. He, immediately after he got released from the Obama administration, he went on this documented tour of country, rural America. As soon as Trump got elected, he wanted to meet Trump voters, hear them out, talk to them, because for a large part, people in rural America were also dehumanized.
Right.
Their needs were neglected. They're just assuming what they're talking about and advocating for themselves. Their advocacy was put on the back burner because they were not seen as equal people to people in New York or LA or DC, Chicago, Houston, Dallas. They were just separate people, right? So I've respected Van Jones because he went out to them and reached them. But when it came to the Iran war, he was for it. And he was telling fellow progressives.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going.
Van Jones was advocating for the war and telling other progressives to get behind it. Because he fell for the same tropes, that the way they treat their women, about questions of religious freedom there. There's religious freedom in Iran. There are Christians in Iran today. There's a 1,000-plus-year-old Jewish community that's continuous in Iran today. Women have rights. Literally the only thing that people have a question about is that it's their country's dress code that women have to wear a headscarf. Now, why does anyone in the West even have an opinion on that? That boggles me. Like, why we have the space in our minds to even concern ourselves with the dress code in another country.
Now, I can see some women listening who might not agree with that.
No, I mean, the women in Iran, they can have an opinion on that. Whether they want to wear it or not, that's that country's conversation to have. Now, why does anyone in the West care? They're happy, they're healthy, they get educated, they have families. Like, leave them alone. This subject is not worth bombing a country over. But someone like Van Jones was getting behind it. I mean, so it goes back to that 40-plus year effort of dehumanizing this public that makes the mind justify violence towards them. We do that with Palestinians. We do that with Iraq, with Iraqis. It's all dehumanization, and it's manufactured dehumanization.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that you and I can get on the same page about, that there is a lot happening, especially from the right. If you look at the way the language is constructed, you look at the way it's framed, it is framed in a way that is meant to divide us internally. It's meant to divide us from our friends and our allies. It's meant to divide us from countries who maybe are not our friends and allies. Maybe they're neutral. Maybe they are a little bit on the other side, but it's meant to divide in a very intentional way that tears us down and works against peace. It works against
peace. So even the idea that some nations are allies and some aren't, even that is a manufactured thing. There's no reason why the entire world can't be allies with one another, right? It's disputes over land, resources, which are solvable. But the idea that a certain nation is just inherently not our ally, we have too much against one another, it's all manufactured. I mean, if you were to meet an Iranian today, you would have no question about their value as a human being. If you met a Cuban, if you met a Palestinian, any country that the United States has gone to war with, if you were to meet the people, there's nothing about them you would find objectionable.
Well, I would argue that sometimes we absolutely understand it's not the people, it's the government that is in place, right? And I do feel a little bit differently. I think there are some issues with some of the governments that we're talking about.
Governments, for sure.
That are difficult to figure out how to solve. And what should we do about it? I'll tell you, for one, I don't really want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Yeah, I don't feel good about that. But I think we absolutely need to separate the Iranian government from the Iranian people, who have a long history of culture and thought, I guess, for lack of a more elegant way of saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a long history of what happened in Iran. Gosh, mathematics? Am I getting this right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
Algebra.
algebra, right? Like you go back, 1,000, 1,200 years, and it was us, right? I'm, thinking about my own, I guess, racial background. It was us that were backwards, right? And
I mean, what's backwards, what's forward?
Good point.
We all learn from others.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And so, maybe to wrap this part up, we need all the friends around the world we can get. We don't need to make enemies out of people just to make them enemies. We need to figure out how to advance peace around the world.
Before we wrap up this segment, there's one. Okay, so do you know Matt Walsh?
No.
He's a right-wing commentator. Okay. He made a comment that stuck with me, which was like very emblematic of how people think and how they're dehumanizing others without realizing it. So it was a very like off the cuff comment where he was talking about Mexican food. Okay, he was saying Mexican food in America is better than it is in Mexico because everything is better in America, and that he didn't want to go to a food cart in Mexico where something along the lines of like where the guy has his foot in the food and he's cooking and there's flies everywhere and stuff. And that made me think, the man has never been to Mexico.
Well, probably true.
So that's why so then he sees Mexican people here and thinks less of them.
Well, that's classic framing, right? I mean, he's chosen language and chosen framing in order to divide. And I would look in the camera and say, if you're watching that kind of stuff, you need to stop watching that. You need to recognize it for what it is and stop watching it.
I mean, it's intentional manufactured dehumanization.
Yeah, indeed. And that is being done by the current federal administration, and it needs to stop. And that's part of why we're here. I want to change to D. I mean, this is a pretty big change. We're going to change to D8. Why you ran as a candidate, and in particular, you and I are both talking about right now reasons that we think it's important to be engaged in what's going on. You chose to run for city council in D8. Why'd you do that?
So I used to work at the district council office about 8 years ago for Manny Pelaez.
For Councilman Pelaez.
For Councilman Pelaez. I was the director of constituent services. Yeah. That was my first exposure to the hard mechanics of what government actually is. So growing up, I studied political science, and then I did my master's in international economics.
Okay. At UTSA.
At UTSA and then St. Mary's.
Yeah.
St. Mary's for grad school. And my thinking of government was always high-level policy, not the nuts and bolts of the streets, sidewalks, police, fire, roads, stadiums.
Which is so much about what local politics and council districts are about, right? You guys are getting phone calls all day long about people who want their sidewalks fixed.
When you step outside your house, everything you see has to do with the city. So really your quality of life starts with the city. I mean, federal policy matters, but it takes a lot. It takes a while to feel its effect. Like we feel the effects of immigration because we see the videos of people being held in ICE detention facilities. If our city was responsible for that, we would see it right in front of our eyes. But because it's the federal government, it's a little more distant. So that's what got me interested in local office. And I wanted to run because part of it is the council person that you have is the first representative of government. And I always felt that there's this moral component to leadership and that you are a role model for others. And so we look at that big brother, big sister program, how you're a role model. I felt like local office is that too. And I wanted to use that office to build bridges to all the communities of District 8. So I was on the board of my mosque, the Muslim Children Education and Civic Center. which is also in District 8. And my role on the board was to make the mosque like a public-facing institution, not just an insular place where only Muslims come to pray and then go home, but create space for ourselves in the larger San Antonio community.
Right.
So for 7 years, I did that, right? So I invited council members, I invited candidates, the mayor, to come speak and just address us as equals. One of the best things that we did that I feel the most proud of was in 2007, when Councilman Pelaez was first running, we had a District 8 candidate forum. And so when you go to these forums in neighborhood associations, hardly 20, 30 people show up. And that's a good event when 30 people show up, right? We had like 200 people.
Oh my gosh.
We had 200 people, and it was a lot of people from the Muslim community, but it was also non-Muslim.
I've been to those 20, 30 person forums.
That's how they usually
I know
are.
what you're talking about.
It's hard to get people engaged, but we had 200 plus people. It was a packed house. I didn't expect it. There was media there. It was written about. And so what I loved about it is that a mosque is being treated as a place where community affairs are being discussed. We were talking about road construction. It was not just foreign policy or Israel-Palestine stuff. It was day-to-day issues. And people came to the mosque and didn't feel out of place discussing these kind of things there.
And so the audience, I think what you're telling me is that the audience that was there was not necessarily primarily from your mosque or from the families who go to the next mosque down the road. They maybe went to the Episcopal Church or the Baptist Church, maybe, who knows?
Right. So that moment was a bridge where people who look at the mosque in a certain way came and treated it as if it's their own place. They're questioning these candidates, and none of the candidates were Muslim. They were talking to them as equals in a place that is typically foreign to them, but it became local.
Yes.
And so the mosque was treated as a local place.
Yeah.
And
when it normalizes, right?
It normalizes.
We have, that's what an interesting thought. You can tell when we have freedom of religion, when you can walk into a place of faith of any type and feel like it's normal.
Yeah. I mean, that's when
what
you
a
know
cool
that.
Thought.
So it's a step past tolerance. Tolerance, it's acceptance. The people in that moment accepted the mosque as a place. This is a San Antonio mosque. These people are San Antonians that come here. And we're all here today to discuss how to make our city better. And
this is what we want to do on the Speak USA podcast is to highlight what it means to be an American.
Yeah.
And it is not what we're hearing from the right today. It is not. That is not freedom of religion. It is not all men are created equal. All people, if I may edit a little bit, right? All people are created equal. That's not what we're seeing. We want to stand for something different. Yeah. So what was it like? How did you, okay, so this goes directly to our mission now on this podcast. You decided to run. What was that thought process? How did you get from I ought to do this to I'm doing this? How did that happen?
First, it was a question of, can I do this?
Okay.
Then it was, how do I do it? Then it was, I'm doing it.
All right.
So,
let me summarize that. Can I do this?
Yeah.
How do I do this? And then what? The third one? What?
I'm doing it.
I'm doing this. Okay. Well, that's really funny because I'm doing this. Here I am sitting at this table doing a podcast that I talked about doing for a while.
You're doing it.
Right. And, I was just like, I've had enough. I'm doing it. So, and then I started. So how, you obviously decided you could do this.
So can I do it? Okay. So the layers of questions in that was, part of it was, can a Muslim do this? Like, is this district ready? Is this city ready for a Muslim?
You had to grapple with that. It's reality. Whether it should be or not, it's reality.
So the councilwoman of District 1, Sup Kaur, she's Indian. Okay, so that bridge had been crossed. That barrier had been broken. San Antonio can accept a South Asian. Downtown, the downtown district is a unique district where they like unique things.
Indeed.
Is District 8 that? So there's only one way to find out, right? So the bulk of the Muslim community does live in District 8. The majority of our businesses that are culturally themed are in District 8. 2 out of 3 major mosques are in District 8. So there's enough of us to make a difference. Are there enough of us to rely on this community to put a candidate over the top? No. And there's not enough engagement in that community. So I knew that at the very least, the Muslim community would be a base to get me at least 10%. So that if I put in all this effort, I can at least have a meaningful impact on the race.
Right.
Whether I win or not, that's to be determined on the day of the election.
Yeah.
Then it was a question of my personal capacity. I had to ask myself, am I who I think I am? Can I raise the money?
How'd you answer that?
In all humility, I think I am who I think I am. And the only way to test it is to put yourself out there.
Is to do it, yeah.
Suffer the embarrassment or the victory and just do it.
Yeah.
So the first question, can I raise the money? Can I put together a team? I was afraid of half-assing it. My only fear when it comes to losing, I'm not afraid of losing. I can be humble in victory. I can be humble in defeat. Because one, I'm very lucky. I have a good life. I have my wife. I'm very close to my wife, my kids, my parents, my brothers. I'm blessed in so many ways. So if I win, the victory doesn't define me, and the loss doesn't define me. So I have some good friends that are staffers for current council members, and I'm actually friends with some of the council members. So I asked them, I was like, what does it take? So the first answer was unanimous, like, you have to be able to raise money. So what I did was I created a spreadsheet, and I basically went through my phone and put everyone I know and how much I think they can donate. The max is 500, right? So I was like, okay, I know this person has a lot of money. I know they can donate 500. This person, okay, I think I can get $100 out of them. This person is stingy. This person is generous, whatever. So it ended up being like close to...
By the way, I love this discussion we're having right
It's
now.
real. This is the real...
we think about it so high-minded, right? Yeah. And so forth. And hey, that is the reality, is you can't run for office. And there's something to be said for the fact that you can get people who are leaders in our city to look at you and say, I can see that. I mean, it's the reality of politics.
Yeah, so that was the first test. These people they'll donate money for me, sure. But do they believe in me? Like, do they believe in me enough to give me the money? So that was the first test. So when the finance reports came out in the first round of fundraising, after the majority of the candidates had already declared, I had the most amount of money, like 3 times more than the next opponent. So that was like a humbling experience, that at that point, by whatever the available metrics are, I'm the front runner. Now I had to keep up that momentum, and we did. We kept that fundraising momentum. But okay, so when the first round, we had about $70,000 cash on hand, which was crazy. Like, I didn't know I could raise this kind of money. Some of it was money that I put in myself, right? I had to show to people that I believe in myself enough to put some skin in the game. So, all right, that happened. Now, can I put together a proper team? Because the other part that I was nervous about, if I don't have a team, if I don't have professional messaging, I'm just some schmuck like going out there and, hey, vote for me, but I don't have proper branding. Yeah. I don't have artistry behind my campaign. Yeah. I don't have good messaging. I'm a candidate. I can think about streets and sidewalks and public safety and all that,
Yeah.
But you need a campaign that creates the brand.
You know what I'm laughing about right now is I don't know that I've ever heard anyone of Pakistan origin say the word schmuck before.
I actually use that term a lot.
What a great cross, integration across
So
cultures.
I use that phrase a lot because it's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
It describes perfectly just some schmuck.
Made me smile when you said it. Yeah.
So I don't want to be just some schmuck running for office. Like, I want to be the guy.
Yeah.
I want to be that guy. So I was very lucky. I found the right. There's really only 3 or 4 companies, I would say. I mean, they're not companies. They're all mom and pop shops. But only 3 or 4 teams out there that are really worth their money, really worth their salt. And I got paired with a team called Doable, a husband and wife, Mohammed and Brielle, who are progressive. Our values align 100%, and the dedication that they showed to me was beyond what I could have.
So they were running your campaign?
They ran my campaign. So Brielle ended up running Melissa Haverda's campaign for mayor.
Okay.
And Mohammed was my dedicated campaign manager.
Was your campaign? Yeah.
And with him came like a data analyst. With him came a field organizer, and with him came like 25 paid canvassers, quality canvassers. I didn't be okay. A lot
and
of
a canvasser, for anybody who may not know, what's a canvasser?
Somebody that knocks on doors. Like, we give him a list of doors to knock on. We give him a loose script. And then you rely on their charisma and their personality and their honesty to advocate for their client.
And did you knock on doors?
Oh, I knocked on.
Oh, I know the answer to that.
About 7,000 doors myself.
Yeah, I did. And what was that? What is that like? What's that like?
I enjoyed it. It was fun. 'Cause you don't know who's going to open the door. You don't know what kind of mood they're in. You don't know if they even care. They're voters because we have their voting record. But a lot of people, I started early on. The election was in May. I started block walking, I want to say like September. That's how I got to 7,000 doors, right? And I was doing 20 to 50 a day, Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I could knock on 100 doors. And no matter the temperature, no matter the weather, I was out there.
Off you go.
Whether it was 100 degrees or 25 degrees, 7 days a week, I didn't stop. Maybe I just took one day off here and there. But yeah, I mean, you get an appreciation for the role when you meet the voters. Otherwise, it's streets and sidewalks. But then when you actually meet the people who are going to utilize these facilities, it becomes about them. And I learned more from the voters than I did from studying issues on my own.
Yeah, so I wanted to go there briefly. I mean, if you knocked on 7,000 doors, you must have learned a lot about what people really care about.
Yeah.
Here, if you had to summarize that in 1 minute under 3 themes, well, or maybe 2 or 4, whatever, what would they be?
Public safety, number 1. It was unanimous. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Everyone first and foremost cares about public safety. The second thing was cleanliness in the city. Beautification. I mean, everybody used different words. Some people, I mean, it all boils down to beautification. You want to be proud of where you live. And that encompasses so much. You want to make sure the grass is cut on the sidewalks. I live off of Wurzbach. I have made a stink about it so many times on social media about how, like, I'll go running from Blumel and Wurzbach to Wurzbach and Fredericksburg and back. That's my exercise route. And the grass is always unkept. Like, even when it gets mowed, like, it still looks ugly. Like, I love my city, I love my community, but it's ugly. Like, I wanted to make it beautiful, and that's what the people wanted. That's what.
So you heard
about.
That from them as well?
I heard that from. I mean, across the board, public safety, beautification. Then it was about an issue. It was about jobs. And the city does have influence over that, but not as much as it should. It should be much more engaging when it comes to bringing employment to the city. The other thing, so outside of the local issues, I was surprised at the amount of people that talked to me about immigration. That issue ended up coming up way more than I thought, because we had a migrant resource center at that time.
Right.
And so a lot of people, I don't know why the city was so secretive about it.
And what perspective were they coming from? They asking about it, concerned about the treatment, or more concerned about security at the border and not having as many people coming? Where were they coming from?
Yeah, most people came from that perspective.
From the latter.
Yeah, from the latter.
From the latter perspective.
They were concerned, and it really was more so because they didn't understand what the Migrant Resource Center was about. I think they saw it as a place that's inviting illegal immigrants and showing them how to stay. When it was really more just, we don't care why you're here, just if you need a place to sit for a little bit, to gather your bearings and figure out what you're supposed to do, this is the place.
Right.
Rather than just going out, hanging out in the streets.
Yeah, two things that occur to me when I think about this topic, from my faith background, the widow, the orphan, and the alien, is talked about, and how we treat them, how we treat these people who are in a difficult place or have had difficult circumstances in their life. The other thing that occurs to me in thinking about this issue is our country's legal commitment to accept refugees who are running from a situation. And I think a lot of people don't understand where that goes back to. It goes in many ways back to World War II. And if you think about what was happening in World War II, all of the people that were forcibly removed from, not by their own, either forcibly removed or they're fleeing war, literally. And what is going to happen worldwide when you have that kind of refugee movement and you don't have a thoughtful, compassionate, planned way to handle that? And then you take those ideas, which, we could now go back to the notion that Italians and people who are Irish look more like the people who are in our country today, right? If you fast forward to today, the refugees who are moving don't look as much like what the U.S. has historically been, and you see a different attitude about it. And that is just it's sad and it's wrong to me. So many people are fleeing, they're fleeing danger. They're fleeing danger for their children. What would you do? I want to look at people and ask that question.
This reminds me of a moment. So this is one of the things that I made a video about. So I met two women in one day that asked the same question, but they meant two different things. So the question was, what are you going to do about the refugees? So when the first woman asked me, she was a volunteer at the Center for Refugee Services. So she wanted to know, what am I going to do for them positively? Like, what am I going to do to improve their quality of life, advocate for them? The other woman asked me, what are you going to do about refugees? And I asked her, like, what do you mean? Well, there's too many of them. How are you going to stop them from coming? So I had to wrestle with that for a minute, because do I take the humanitarian approach? Do I take the economic approach? What is going to make her see these people as humans? It goes back to the colonizer mindset where we dehumanize others. This group is human, this group is not human. So her thing was about the Afghan refugees. So where I live, there are apartment complexes that are 80+% Afghan refugee families. The entire medical center, they're moving out, but it's the medical center is heavy with the refugee community.
Right.
So the tone that this woman was taking wasn't like an aggressive tone. It was more like she's just scared. She's just nervous. Traditional immigrants go through like a kind of like a rigorous process. They either come through employment, family reunification, or education. It's not that easy to come to America, right? But these families came a different route, and they came in droves. There was entire villages from Afghanistan that have essentially uprooted and migrated here.
Right.
So
and if I can just interject into this very quickly, one of the most heroic moments of our country, in my opinion. That picture of, I think it was a C-5 taken off from Kabul with 800 people who were officially refugees, I suppose, the moment that plane took off the ground, right?
Yeah.
Who were coming to America, to, you know, and you know, many of whom had supported the things that we were doing there. You know, what a heroic moment. And then they land here, and then what do we do? How do we treat them?
Yeah, they should have actually been
gosh.
welcomed as heroes.
Yes.
Like, thinking back, we should have had people greeting them at the airport, waving the Afghan flag, supporting them. Because those guys risked their lives.
Absolutely.
They risked their families' lives to support our mission. Because they felt what America wants, this partnership with America, is better than our fellow Afghans who are the Taliban.
Right.
They sided with us. And so what I told this woman was, oh, these Afghans, you know, these are all the interpreters, the linguists, the soldiers in the Afghan National Army that helped us. They're here because of us. They lost their country, but that's why they're here. Otherwise, they were there. They didn't just leave on their own, and their lives were in danger. And then she was like, well, why don't they stay and fight for their own country? It's like, well, I mean, they got overrun. Like, what are they supposed to do? Yeah. My focus was to just humanize them. But there was just this block, this wall where she just couldn't see them as people. What did these guys do day to day? They worked to pay rent, to buy food for their families, and send their kids to school. Literally everything that all of us do. And just work, afford to live, and just go home and live in dignity. That's it.
Indeed. And this is what America's supposed to be about.
This is what America
It's supposed to be a
is.
place that you can come, find freedom, you know, be a contributing citizen, you know, live a life, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
I mean, it's basic dignity, right? That everyone is seeking, and you seek it in different ways, but everybody just wants to live a life.
And I think you just made me think about something too, which is the comment I made before about that C-5 taking off. And it's a heroic moment, in my opinion. But I have to admit, I was thinking about the pilots, and I was thinking about the American servicemen. I was not thinking about the heroic nature of the people sitting on the floor of that C-5 and what they were doing to advance, you know, what they had done and were getting ready to do, and the sacrifices they made.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, you know, you get on that plane. It's interesting, something that I've thought about lately more than I've ever thought about before. And I think most people understand why maybe I at least gave this a little thought, is what would it be like if I had to leave?
Right.
What would, you know, I have family here. I have friends here. My investment is in San Antonio. I mean, this is my, you know, my personal relationships, my professional network. It's all here. What would it be like if I had to get up and go somewhere? And that's what they did. They had no choice but to get up and go. And imagine the people that they have been separated from in their lives. Imagine what they left behind. I can't. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, and having to learn a new system from scratch.
Oh yeah.
There's a few families that I'm connected with. Me and my friends kind of support them and just help them, help their kids. They didn't know how to pay bills.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't know what, you know, SAWS, CPS, like go online, create an account.
Yeah, just in case. You know, we're not a strictly San Antonio Water System, Central Public Service, who's the city-owned utility.
Yeah.
Everybody heads up. Yeah.
So they had to learn these things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, indeed.
So going through that while still, you know, like as a father, you want to be the man for your kids that knows everything, that can grant them some reprieve, buy them something. You know, they had to start, and these guys are my age. That's the crazy thing. You can see the look of, like, the exhaustion of war on the faces of the husbands and wives, and they're the same age as me. Some of them are younger than me, but they look older because they're just tired. The
long-term impact of having been through what they've been through, that's amazing. Well, I'm going to need to turn a corner and start moving us to a wrap-up here. we were going to talk a little bit about San Antonio competing on the state, national, and global stage. I think I can give you about 1 minute on that. How are we doing? What do we need to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is something I studied
Probably
deeply.
not fair to give you 1 minute to do it.
Give me 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. You got it. Go.
So one thing I discovered on the campaign trail is that we are actually behind on a lot of things. We don't have as many young people as we need. We don't have as many working professionals. What started my discovery of this was that I would look at our budget, our city's budget, and compare it to other cities. Like the amount of officers we have, our tax revenue, and I compare it to others. Even though our population, so one fact that I would present to people is, we have about 2,500 officers in SAPD. Dallas has, I want to say, almost triple that. But our population is about 300,000 more than Dallas. So the ratio, and okay, then we look at the amount of money we spend on public safety as a percentage of the revenue collected versus what other cities do. We spend more, but we collect less because our tax base hasn't kept up.
Our per capita
with our
tax
population.
base is not the same.
So the average San Antonian doesn't earn enough money. The average income we need, because we don't have those jobs, those corporations that pay 60, 70, 80,000 a year as the base salary.
At the same level that other cities do. We don't
have it as much as Austin, Houston, Dallas. So that's where we're behind. So if you ask me, where do we stand compared to other cities in America or across the world, we're quite far behind. We're quite far behind. Even though we have 5 universities here.
Yeah, we do.
But something is not, there's some disconnect.
Well, we do, and we have some large financial services companies. We have some large tech. We have a lot of military missions that have defense contractors that are around those military missions. I think there is a list of things that we could tick off that are opportunities, but we don't have the same percentage of those opportunities that are in other places. And, then of course the question becomes, how do we remain there's a great culture here, and how do we keep that great culture while we work on those other fronts as well, which we've tended to do, I think. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So we got one last question, and here it is. We are all about, at Speak USA, we want people who are watching what's going on in our country and not happy about it to get engaged. And one of the things I love doing today is talking to you about how you decided not to just watch, but to actually jump in and do something. Now, you did something really big. You ran for office, right? So you had to go through those 3 steps, right? How can I do this? How do I do it, right? But there are a lot simpler things that one can do to get started. What's the first simple thing or two that comes to mind for you about how somebody who's listening, who wants to get engaged, wants to change what's happening, can do it?
First thing I would say, get involved with your HOA.
Okay.
Those are surprisingly more connected to government than you would think. So I'm the president of my HOA.
Of your HOA, right.
At Laurel Hills.
Right.
And one thing that's
And HOA stands for?
Homeowners Association.
Yeah.
So some are mandatory, some are voluntary. Mine is voluntary. So not everyone in the neighborhood pays dues. But okay, so right outside our neighborhood is the Silk Road District, which is the designation been given to that strip of Wurzbach.
Right.
So what happens there in the future impacts us. So it's in our interest to seek our elected representative, invite them, and ask them questions. That's the first connection from neighborhood to government. We often associate government with the big issues of our time, and that's true.
Yeah.
But what it requires to get engaged on the big issues, it's much easier to start at the grassroots local level. So start with your neighborhood, start with your streets, join a city board or commission. A lot of those appointments are more political than people realize. But go to budget town halls. Go to your city, no matter where you live.
So start showing up at these events.
Start showing up.
Yeah, and learn where they are, and learn where they're happening, which is the first step in doing that. All right. Well, I'm going to move us toward the close right here. Thank you so much for being with us. What a wonderful conversation we had.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. To our audience, I want to ask you, what did you learn about our democracy today? Remember, you can learn more at our website, speakusa.org, where in addition to what we just talked about, you can learn how to connect, where you can give, where you can show up, how you can speak out. Obviously, we're a little San Antonio connected here. There's a San Antonio chapter where you can see local events. You can actually figure out where you can show up and places that you can go to have your voice heard. And so until next time, please remember, please go speak for the USA. Thank you for listening to the Speak USA podcast.
Right on.
Right on.